This video tutorial just serves to give you an overview of how to export the fenestration elements from Revit via the export tool into SANSCalc version 2. Right, so I've got a little building here in front of me, and the first step is to make sure Revit's closed. Go and download the SANSCalc Export tool from the website, install it, and then open Revit, and make sure that when you go to the add-ins tab, that under external tools, that the SANSCalc Export is available. Right, once that's done, you could do some preparation to your model. And a couple of things to look at is, if I zoom into a wall and I select the wall, just make sure that that little orientation marker sits on the outside of your wall, and because it indicates the external face of the wall. Right, then also if I go to the properties of that wall and I go edit type, just make sure the function of that wall reads exterior. SANSCalc Export only looks at the exterior walls. Obviously internal walls, you'll just set that as a different thing, maybe interior. Right, that done, you can also look at how these two connect. If you've got two connecting walls, currently or by default, it doesn't connect via the mitre area. It usually connects butt joint, and it's a good idea to just set it to mitre, as it then gives you a more accurate external lengths. Right, obviously these external lengths are used for the mechanical part of the fenestrations if required. Right, then finally, just looking at stacked walls. If I look at a stacked wall, what Revit does, do export and do process stacked walls. However, it can't add a mark to a stacked wall, as it consists of too many walls. Now, just to explain, a wall by default, or a window and door by default, gets a mark as you place the item. However, a wall, when you draw the wall, does not get a mark by default. Now, the SANSCalc Export tool assigns a mark to each of these wall elements, providing you with a cross-reference system to cross-reference your drawing, physical drawing, with the Revit walls. Now, with regard to the stacked walls, as I said, it can't assign as it doesn't have a mark over here. As soon as I select the item and I break it up, it now forms part, each of these elements are individual walls, which has a mark property, which SANSCalc Export can then populate, right, for identification purposes. Right, so that done, let's do an export. So I go add-ins, I go to external tools, and I say, right, let's use the export tool. It gives you a tip about which I just explained, with the mark being added to normal walls but not stacked walls. However, you can go and continue through and not add marks to these stacked walls. So firstly, it picks up the rooms, all the areas of each room. Windows, it adds all the marks from the windows it pulled through, heights, areas, and so on. Orientation as well, based on the host of like the wall and the window being hosted in the specific orientated wall. Similar, the doors, and then also all the walls. And note here, it's added these marks to the walls. And if you have wall marks pre-assigned, it will skip those and add unique wall marks for the other items. These ones that haven't been added marks to are the stacked walls. Right, then the curtain walls I can also just add, and I can say export. Right, giving it a name, I say, right, let's say OK there. And what it does, it exports a certain number of items, and it's taken a certain time. Now we've done extensive testing in using larger files, and the largest one we've used is for 20,000 items, and it took 3 minutes. However, a typical drawing typically has like 1,000 or so objects, which done in 2 or 3 seconds. Right, so if I close that, the file has been created. I can just minimize Revit for now, and in SANSCalc I would then open that database, just looking at the file and saying open. Right, it reads that exported information, giving the building a name, and the stories has come through. Right, looking at the ground floor, that room has been added. However, what we need to do, you'll notice there's no values on the right. These are determined by the climate zone, so which I can go and select, say zone 5. Once I've selected the zone, you'll notice it has added those. However, you can click on the do all calculations button thereafter, just making sure that whatever zone you've selected applies to the calculations. Alright, once that's done, I can go to the facades and also the windows and the fenestration elements, and most of the information has been completed. However, I need to just, for instance, just select a couple of these, maybe completing the G values. And if I've got multiple G values, which I'll give you an example of now. Right, so that's been added. So if I have a different, say these 4 have got the same G and P values, I could add a multiple selection by holding down Control and Shift, or Shift, and then applying the values and saying apply, and then them being selected, I can go and just add that as well, and it'll just apply it and complete it. So it's very quick to afterwards go and apply multiple values to it. Right, so that you'll now complete the windows, glazed doors and walls, and make sure that everything is done. If you now want to link or do mechanical ventilation, you'll just need to link each fenestration element to a facade. Obviously in here you need to just make sure that you've selected a couple of items, make sure the story height is applied, and then also that might be S1, E1 and so on. That might be S2 depending on which, if it's a U-shaped building facing south or north or so on. Right, so once that's now created, you can go back to your window element, and if it's a south facing item, you can either drag it off this list and say right apply, or multi-select and apply, or if it's a east item, you can just say E1, manually typing it in or using the multi-select options. Once all of this is done, you can go and save it and then generate your report. Right, so basically that just concludes our video tutorial, how to export information from Revit via the export tool into SANSCalc.